The metal bars of the shelter cage were cold, indifferent. Rex, a large, scarred German shepherd, lay silently in the corner, his eyes clouded with the weight of memories he couldn't escape. He hadn't always been this way. Once he had a master, a home. But those days felt like they belonged to another life, one drowned in the echoes of a trauma that still haunted his dreams. The night his world fell apart was etched in his mind like claw marks on stone. Loud voices, a violent confrontation, and the figure of his beloved owner lying unmoving on the ground. Ever since, fear and distrust coiled around his heart like chains. People passed his cage every day, their faces a blur of hopeful smiles and pitying glances. Some tried to approach, offering gentle words and treats, but Rex always retreated to the shadows, a low growl vibrating deep in his chest. He didn't trust anyone. People had hurt him. They had left him alone in the world. He would not be fooled again. Then came her Lena. She was not like the others. Lena wasn't a child with boundless excitement or a family looking for a playful companion. She sat quietly in her wheelchair just beyond the bars, observing him with patient, empathetic eyes. There was something different about her scent. Calm but filled with quiet determination. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she let the silence between them stretch and settle, as if telling Rex that she wasn't here to force him to trust her. She understood how much that choice had to come from him. "His name is Rex," one of the shelter workers said gently. "He's been through a lot. He needs time, maybe more than most." Lena nodded thoughtfully and finally whispered, "Hello, Rex." His ears twitched at the sound of her voice, low and soothing like a distant lullaby. He didn't move closer but didn't growl either. It was the smallest sign of progress, but Lena recognized it for what it was. She knew what it felt like to be afraid, to feel vulnerable in a world that could be cruel and unrelenting. As the days passed, Lena made it a habit to visit. She brought soft blankets, treats, and most importantly, time. Rex watched her carefully, his amber eyes never leaving her as she told him stories about her life. She spoke of how a car accident had taken away her ability to walk but not her will to keep going. "You and I, Rex," she said softly. "We've both lost something important, but maybe we can help each other find a way forward." Rex wasn't ready to trust her yet. His nightmares didn't vanish overnight, nor did his fear of sudden movements or loud noises. But little by little, her presence became familiar, less threatening. When she finally asked if she could take him home, the shelter staff hesitated. "Are you sure, Lena? He's difficult. He might never fully recover." Lena straightened in her wheelchair, her gaze unwavering. "He's not just difficult. He's hurting. And if no one else believes in him, then I will." The first night in Lena's home was tense. Rex explored cautiously, his body low to the ground as if expecting danger around every corner. The small apartment was quiet, with soft lighting and cozy corners where he could retreat if needed. Lena didn't push him to interact. Instead, she let him take his time, offering space and security. She showed him his new bed, a soft cushion near her chair. He didn't use it that night, opting instead to lie near the door where he could keep watch. Lena understood. She had spent many nights unable to sleep, her mind restless with fear of the unknown. She simply whispered, "Good night, Rex," before turning off the light. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Lena worked from home, typing on her laptop while Rex observed her from a distance. Occasionally, he would approach tentatively, sniffing her hand before pulling away. Small victories. Each time he did, Lena rewarded him with praise and gentle affection, never too much at once. One morning, after a particularly restless night, Lena wheeled herself into the kitchen and noticed Rex following her. He seemed different, more alert, less guarded. She carefully held out a treat, and this time he didn't hesitate. He took it from her hand, his eyes meeting hers with something close to curiosity. "You're a brave boy, Rex," she said, smiling softly. "You're stronger than you realize." The words touched something deep inside him. For the first time in a long while, Rex felt a flicker of warmth, a faint spark of trust. but shadows still lingered in both their hearts. Neither of them knew that soon, their courage would be tested in a way neither could have foreseen. A moment when fear and danger would collide, forcing them to stand together or fall apart. For now, though, they had hope, and sometimes hope was enough to carry them forward. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, Rex began to adapt to his new life with Lena. The routines were comforting in a way he hadn't expected. Lena was patient and gentle, never forcing him to do more than he was ready for. Every morning, they would go out together, Lena in her wheelchair and Rex walking alongside her. The world outside was still filled with uncertainty, but with Lena beside him, Rex found himself feeling a little braver each time. Yet, fear was a shadow that clung to him. Loud noises made him jump, and he remained wary of strangers. He couldn't shake the memories of his past, the shouting, the fear, and the pain. In his dreams, he was often back there, reliving the trauma that had shaped him. Lena seemed to understand this without him needing to express it. Whenever he woke from a nightmare, panting and tense, she would softly reassure him, her voice steady and calming. "It's okay, Rex," she would whisper. "You're safe now. I'm here." One afternoon, Lena decided it was time for them to explore the park nearby. It wasn't too crowded, just a few people walking their dogs or jogging along the paths. Rex's ears twitched nervously as he scanned his surroundings, but Lena's calm presence kept him grounded. She let him lead the way, allowing him to choose the pace and direction. At one point, they stopped by a small pond. Rex watched the ducks paddling in the water, his body slowly relaxing. For the first time, he let himself enjoy the moment. Just a simple, peaceful moment without fear. Lena noticed and smiled. "You like it here, huh?" she said softly. "We'll come back often. I promise." As they were preparing to leave, a man approached. He was friendly, smiling as he asked about Rex. "He's a beautiful dog," the man commented. "Looks like he's been through a lot, though." Lena nodded. "Yeah, but he's getting better every day." The man reached out a hand to pet Rex, but the shepherd flinched, a deep growl rumbling in his throat. The man immediately pulled back, surprised but respectful. "Sorry, I didn't mean to startle him." "It's okay," Lena replied, placing a reassuring hand on Rex's back. "He's still learning to trust people." They left the park shortly after, but the encounter stayed with Lena. She realized that Rex's fear of strangers was deeper than she had thought. It wasn't just a reaction. It was a scar left by whatever trauma he had endured before coming to her. She wanted to help him heal, but she knew it would take time. That evening, Lena sat on the couch with Rex lying nearby. She spoke to him quietly, sharing her thoughts as if he could fully understand every word. "You know, I wasn't always this strong," she admitted. "When the accident happened, I thought my life was over. I didn't think I could survive without my legs. But people believed in me. My family, my friends. They didn't let me give up." Rex lifted his head, his eyes meeting hers. He could sense the sincerity in her voice, the truth in her story. "You don't have to be afraid forever," she continued. "We can take it one step at a time together." Slowly but surely, Rex began to trust her more deeply. He started sleeping closer to her bed at night, resting his head near her wheelchair during the day. Each small victory built upon the last, creating a fragile but growing bond between them. However, the peace they had found was about to be tested. One evening, as they returned from a walk, Lena sensed something was off. The streetlights cast long, eerie shadows, and the quiet was unsettling. Rex's ears perked up, his posture tense. He had detected something or someone before Lena could. A figure emerged from the darkness. A man on a motorcycle, stopping abruptly near the sidewalk. He wasn't dressed like a casual passerby. His leather jacket, dark helmet, and the aggressive stance he took as he approached set alarm bells ringing in both Lena and Rex's minds. "Hey there," the man called out casually, though his tone had an edge to it. "Nice dog you got." Lena's hands tightened on her wheelchair's controls. "We're just heading home," she replied, keeping her voice calm but firm. The man took a step closer, his eyes glinting under the streetlight. "You're not in a hurry, are you?" Maybe you've got a little something on you. Cash, maybe? Rex growled low in his throat, stepping protectively in front of Lena. His eyes locked onto the man, muscles coiled like a spring. The biker hesitated, glancing at the dog's size and the sharp teeth visible in the dim light. "Whoa, easy there," the man muttered, raising his hands. No need for trouble. But trouble had already found them. Rex could sense the threat clearly now, his instincts screaming at him to protect the one person who had shown him kindness. Memories of his past surged in his mind. Fear, helplessness, pain. But this time he wouldn't run. He wouldn't let the fear control him. Lena's voice cut through the tension. "Leave us alone," she said firmly, her eyes hard and unwavering. "My dog won't hesitate if you come any closer." For a moment time seemed to freeze. The man sized them up, his gaze flicking between Lena and the growling shepherd. Finally, with a muttered curse, he backed away, retreating to his bike. The roar of the engine shattered the silence as he sped off into the night. Lena let out a shaky breath, her hands trembling slightly. "Good boy, Rex," she whispered, reaching out to touch his fur. He nuzzled her hand gently, his growl fading as the danger passed. They had faced the threat together, and in that moment, the bond between them deepened in a way words could never capture. Rex had protected her, just as she had protected him from the ghosts of his past. Together they were learning to trust, not just each other, but the world around them. And with that trust came the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The encounter with the biker lingered in Lena's mind like a dark cloud. That night, after they returned home, she found herself reflecting on how far Rex had come, and how much further they both still had to go. He had stood between her and danger without hesitation, but she knew it had cost him something. His past wounds, both physical and emotional, were still a part of him. She could see it in the way his eyes darkened when they encountered something unfamiliar. Rex lay near the door, his body tense and alert. He was on guard, as if expecting the man to return at any moment. Lena wheeled herself closer and gently stroked his head. "It's over, Rex. You don't have to worry anymore," she murmured softly. But he did worry. He couldn't help it. In his dreams that night, Rex found himself back in the chaos of his past. He saw flashes of a man shouting, felt the sharp pain of being kicked, and heard the helpless cries of his former owner. The nightmare was vivid and relentless, pulling him into the terror of those moments. When he awoke, panting and shaking, Lena was already beside him, whispering soothing words and gently holding his paw. "You're safe," she repeated. "I'm here." Her presence calmed him, and eventually, he lay his head on her lap, exhaustion overtaking him once more. For the first time since the shelter, he didn't feel entirely alone. The next day, Lena decided to visit a quiet nature trail outside the city. She thought the fresh air and peaceful surroundings might help both of them recover from the tension of the previous night. Rex was hesitant at first, sniffing the air cautiously, but the absence of loud noises and strangers allowed him to gradually relax. The trail wound through a dense forest, sunlight filtering through the trees in soft, golden beams. Birds chirped overhead, and the sound of a gentle stream nearby added to the serenity of the scene. Rex walked close to Lena's side, his ears twitching at every rustle of leaves but not in fear. This time it was curiosity. They came to a small clearing where Lena stopped to rest. She took out a thermos of tea and poured herself a cup. Rex sat beside her, his gaze sweeping across the landscape. For a moment, everything felt right. The burdens of the past faded into the background, replaced by the quiet beauty of nature and the comforting presence of his new companion. Lena looked at him thoughtfully. "You know, Rex, I think we both needed this. Sometimes I forget what it feels like to just breathe." Rex's ears perked up at her voice, and he gave a small bark of agreement. She laughed softly, the sound light and genuine. It had been a long time since she had laughed like that, since either of them had. But peace never lasted long for those haunted by trauma. As they prepared to leave the clearing, Rex suddenly froze, his body stiffening as he caught a scent on the breeze. His hackles rose, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. Lena noticed the change immediately. "What is it, Rex?" she asked, her voice cautious. Rex's eyes narrowed as he scanned the trees. The scent was faint but unmistakable. Someone was nearby. He recognized it from the night before. The biker. How had he found them here? A figure appeared at the edge of the clearing, and Lena's breath caught in her throat. It was the same man, his leather jacket unmistakable. He had removed his helmet, revealing a smirk that made Lena's skin crawl. "Well, isn't this a surprise?" the man said, his tone dripping with mockery. "Out here all alone, huh? Looks like fate brought us together again." Rex stepped forward, placing himself between Lena and the man. His growl deepened, a warning that was impossible to ignore. "You don't want to do this," Lena said, her voice steady despite the fear tightening her chest. "We've done nothing to you. Just leave us alone." The man chuckled darkly. "Oh, I don't know. Maybe I've got a score to settle with your little bodyguard here." He took a step closer, but before he could move further, Rex lunged forward, barking fiercely. The sound echoed through the forest, startling birds into flight. The man stumbled back, his bravado crumbling in the face of the shepherd's raw fury. All right, he shouted, raising his hands. "I'm not looking to get mauled." He slowly backed away, glaring at them one last time before disappearing into the trees. Rex didn't stop growling until the man was completely out of sight. Lena exhaled shakily, her heart racing. She reached out to Rex, her hand trembling slightly. "You saved me again," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude and awe. Rex turned to her, his eyes softening. The tension in his body slowly eased as he nuzzled her hand, accepting her touch. For the first time since their journey together began, he felt a deep sense of purpose, a reason to protect and trust again. Lena wasn't just his owner. She was his partner, someone who understood his pain and walked beside him through it. Later that evening, as they sat together on the balcony of Lena's apartment, the city lights twinkling in the distance, Rex felt a quiet peace settle over him. The shadows of his past were still there, but they no longer controlled him. Lena had given him a new life, one filled with hope, compassion, and the promise of better days ahead. "We'll be all right, Rex," Lena said softly, stroking his fur. "Together, we can handle anything." He believed her. For the first time in a long time, he truly believed. The days that followed were calmer, but the encounter on the trail left Lena and Rex more cautious. Lena reported the bikers' harassment to the police, but without a full description or evidence of a crime, there wasn't much they could do. Still, Lena refused to live in fear. Rex's loyalty and strength gave her courage she hadn't felt in years, and she was determined not to let the shadows of danger take that away. Despite the tension, their bond deepened. Rex began to trust Lena completely, following her commands with confidence. He no longer flinched at her touch, and his nightmares became less frequent. Small victories filled their days. Rex playing with a ball for the first time, wagging his tail when Lena praised him, and even cautiously approaching friendly neighbors during walks. For both of them, it was like rediscovering the world through a new lens, one where healing was possible. But fate wasn't done testing them yet. One evening, Lena and Rex returned home from the park just as the sun was setting. The orange and pink hues of the sky gave the city an almost dreamlike quality. As they entered the building, Lena's neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, greeted them with a warm smile. "Good evening, Lena. You two look like you had a nice walk," she said cheerfully. "We did," Lena replied, smiling back. "Rex loves the park." Mrs. Delgado chuckled. "He's such a handsome boy. Always protecting you, huh?" "Always," Lena agreed, giving Rex a gentle pat on the head. He wagged his tail, a sign of his growing comfort around those Lena trusted. They said their goodbyes and entered the apartment. Lena wheeled herself to the kitchen to prepare dinner while Rex lay near the door, his usual spot when they were inside. The quiet evening was comforting, the kind of peace they had both come to cherish. But that peace was shattered within minutes. A loud crash echoed from outside, followed by the roar of a motorcycle engine. Rex's ears perked up, his body snapping to full alert. He rushed to the window, growling low in his throat. Lena followed his gaze and saw it. Someone on a motorcycle circling near the entrance to the building. Even from a distance, she could recognize the leather jacket and posture of the biker who had threatened them before. "He's here," Lena whispered, her heart pounding. She quickly locked the door and closed the curtains. Rex was already pacing, his instincts on high alert. He barked sharply, a warning to any intruder who dared come near. Lena grabbed her phone and dialed the police. Her voice was calm but firm as she explained the situation. "There's a man outside my building. He's been following and threatening me. I need officers here as soon as possible." After ending the call, she turned to Rex. "It's going to be okay, boy. We've got each other." Rex barked again as if agreeing. He positioned himself near the door, his body tense and ready. For all the fear that had haunted him, this was a moment of clarity. He wasn't going to let anyone hurt Lena. Not again. Not ever. The minutes stretched endlessly. Lena could hear the motorcycle engine revving outside, the sound grating like a taunt. She clenched her fists, refusing to let fear paralyze her. This time she wasn't alone. This time she had Rex. Suddenly, the building's intercom buzzed, and a distorted voice came through. "Hey girl, you think you can hide in there? I don't forget insults." Lena's jaw tightened. She didn't respond, knowing it would only escalate the situation. Instead, she focused on staying calm, listening to Rex's steady growls as a reminder that she was not defenseless. Then came footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoing down the hallway. The biker was inside the building now. Rex stiffened, his growl intensifying. He moved to block the door, every muscle in his body taut like a coiled spring. "Stay calm, Rex," Lena whispered. "We've got this." The footsteps stopped right outside their door. There was a long pause, followed by a loud bang as the man pounded on the door. "Come on, open up." Rex lunged at the door, barking ferociously. The sound was so powerful that it echoed throughout the hallway. The man cursed, clearly startled by the intensity of the shepherd's response. "I'll be back," he muttered, footsteps retreating quickly. Moments later, the motorcycle engine roared to life, fading into the distance as the man fled. The police arrived shortly after, taking Lena's statement and promising to patrol the area more frequently. One of the officers praised Rex's protective instincts. "You've got a real guardian here," he said with admiration. "He probably scared that guy off for good." Lena smiled, her hand resting on Rex's head. "He's more than just a guardian. He's my partner." After the officers left, Lena finally allowed herself to relax. The fear that had gripped her chest loosened as she looked at Rex, who was still alert but calming down. She wheeled herself over and gently cupped his face in her hands. "You're my hero, Rex," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Rex leaned into her touch, his eyes soft and full of trust. In that moment, they both knew that the worst was behind them. They had faced danger head-on and emerged stronger for it. The ghosts of their pasts no longer had control over them. Together, they were unstoppable. That night, as Lena and Rex lay in peaceful silence, the stars glittered outside their window. For the first time in a long while, they both slept without fear. The future was theirs to shape, a future built on trust, compassion, and the unbreakable bond they shared. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the window, casting warm, golden rays across the room. Lena woke to the comforting sight of Rex lying near her bed, his head resting on his paws. His ears twitched as he sensed her stirring, and he lifted his head, meeting her gaze with a gentle, watchful expression. "Good morning, Rex," Lena said softly, a warm smile spreading across her face. The tension of the previous night seemed like a distant memory. Today felt different, lighter, as though a heavy weight had been lifted from both of them. They began their day with a leisurely walk to the park. The air was crisp and fresh, filled with the scent of blooming flowers and damp earth. Rex walked confidently at Lena's side, his posture relaxed but alert. For the first time, Lena noticed how at ease he was in the world around them. Strangers no longer seemed to intimidate him. He even wagged his tail at a friendly jogger who waved as they passed by. It was a small but significant sign of how far he had come. Later that day, Lena invited her neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, over for tea. The elderly woman had always been kind and supportive, often offering words of encouragement during Lena's recovery. Rex had been wary of her at first, but today he sat quietly beside Lena, observing their conversation without tension. "He's really changed," Mrs. Delgado said, watching Rex with admiration. "It's like he knows he belongs now." Lena nodded, running her fingers through Rex's fur. "He does. And honestly, I don't think I could have done this without him. We've helped each other heal." Mrs. Delgado smiled warmly. "That's the beauty of animals. They teach us things about ourselves: strength, patience, loyalty. He's lucky to have you, and you're lucky to have him." As they continued chatting, Rex eventually laid his head on Lena's lap, a gesture of trust and affection that brought tears to her eyes. She stroked his head gently, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the journey they had taken together. That evening, Lena reflected on how much her life had changed since Rex entered it. She remembered the day she first saw him in the shelter, how broken and afraid he had been, mirroring the pain she had carried inside herself. Neither of them had expected to find hope again, but somehow they had. They had faced challenges and fears that could have shattered them, but together, they had found the strength to overcome. Each small victory had built a bridge between their wounded hearts, allowing trust and love to flourish. And now, here they were, two souls who had been through the fire but emerged stronger, united by an unbreakable bond. As night fell, Lena and Rex sat on the balcony, watching the stars twinkle in the sky. The city below buzzed quietly with life, but up here, everything felt peaceful. Lena leaned back in her chair, breathing in the cool night air. "We've come a long way, haven't we, Rex?" she murmured. Rex, lying at her feet, looked up at her with eyes full of understanding. He gave a soft bark, as if to say, "Yes, we have." For the first time in years, Lena felt truly whole. The scars of the past were still there, but they no longer defined her. She had found her strength again, and so had Rex. Together, they were unstoppable partners in every sense of the word. "Here's to new beginnings," Lena whispered, raising an imaginary toast to the stars. Rex wagged his tail in agreement, his eyes sparkling with warmth and trust. And so, under the endless sky, two survivors celebrated their victory over fear, pain, and doubt. The world was wide and full of possibilities, and they were ready to face it together.